So, how is the background of Oriental dance in Egypt and around the world?
It is very different because the markets are very different. The market in Egypt is probably one of the smallest in the world, but also the most desired and the most competitive, and probably also the dirtiest in the world. I don't know if there is worse, maybe there is, but I don't know it. So it is a highly desired, corrupted environment. It is a market that is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller because Egyptian dance is not fashionable anymore. It was very fashionable and the market was thriving until the 90s. But then, for many reasons, economical, political, religious reasons, Egyptian dance started to go down the drain in Egypt. So the market suffered highly from that context. So nowadays you have a background of a market which is not only unappreciative towards dancers and the dancing, but prostituted, corrupted. You know, you meet a lot of proposals that don't dignify the dance. You know, there is a lot of association between the dance and prostitution. So it is a very specific market in that negative way, but also in a positive way, in the sense that although it's a small market, it's still a market where you're performing every day if you're a good dancer and if you can create a name so people ask for you. So in Egypt you don't dance once in a while, that's the first thing, you dance every day. I mean, for 8 years I hardly took a day off. I was performing every day, several times per night, sometimes during the day. So let's say in the summer I would start performing at 12 midday, and I would stop 3-4 o'clock in the morning. That means like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 8 shows in one day. 8 shows, each show 1 hour, with an orchestra of 13 musicians on my back. So it's very heavy, but it's also a privilege because you are always in the move, you're always growing, and people choose your name, they search for your name. So that creates a market with very specific characteristics for the good and for the bad. Yeah, I mean, you take the good as the bad until it's not interesting anymore. At a certain point, you're not learning anymore, you've built your name, you have your own career stable and settled and launched, and it doesn't make sense to put things in the plate, in the balance, and see, you know what, I'll take the bad because the good is amazing and I'm learning and I'm still growing. When you come to a point of stability, it's, for me at least, it is time to move on. Around the world is completely different. I mean, you don't have any other country, maybe Lebanon, but not as Egypt, not as exciting and as active as Egypt, where dancers or Oriental dancers are working every day. You usually have the festivals, which is the circuit that I'm doing in these last years. So it's big events with big shows and theaters. So you prepare a performance and you deliver it on the spot once in that country, in that city, for that festival. So people are not there every day to see you. They come for the festival, maybe to see you, but they don't come just for you. They come for the festival. And you're part of the festival, right? Even if you're the main figure, you're a part of something bigger, and it's occasional. You go, you do your show, then you leave. So it's completely different from Egypt. It's also a question of working with different groups and different sponsors, different organizers. I'm not very good at marketing myself, so it's interesting how people know me and call me for their festivals, because I don't really make part of groups. I'm not a group person. I deal with everybody the same. I am open to work with everybody who is respectful and professional and interesting. So I'm not a part of a lobby, let's say, which can be very useful in Egypt and anywhere in the world. You know, when you're part of a lobby, you're promoted and protected by that lobby. When you're a free agent and you're not against anyone, pro anyone, so you work everywhere with everyone who is professional, it creates of course it gives you some freedom, right? Because you get to choose who you work with, and you're not limited by sympathies and antipathies. But at the same time, I think it can harm you a bit. You know, freedom has a price. So around the world, the background is really depending on who you work with. Yeah, and how big are the festivals? We have like huge festivals in Russia, for instance. I've been in Russia probably more than in any other country. Argentina too, the two biggest markets in the world. Now China and Japan too. I've worked in these markets. Argentina and Russia more. Those were the two countries where I was more times teaching and performing. So in Argentina, for instance, I had like 700 people in a class. That's a good number, you know, 700 people for a class. It's a lot. In a show, we may have 1,000 people, 2,000 people in a theater, completely packed. In Paris, in France, in La Cigale, for instance, we had more than 3,000 people in the show. So it really depends on the market and the place and how big is the dance community in this country. Yeah, so there is a lot of variety, and for me, it's really indifferent. I mean, I have a big pleasure working for 700 people, and I have a big pleasure working for a group of 20, 100, 60, 1, 2, 1,000. There are different environments, as long as the ones who are collaborating with me are professional and good and cool, as long as the students are there to learn and they come from a place of an open heart and humbleness instead of competing with each other, for me it's perfect. I am adaptable, and I like to work everywhere and with every kind of event in any kind of background which is healthy and professional and inspiring, and with the goal of improving the dance in the world. So it's kind of indifferent for me where, as long as the quality is there.
So at this stage, which dreams exactly have you fulfilled, and which dreams do you still want to materialize?
Okay, well, working in Egypt and being successful there through my own talent exclusively was a big dream. Everybody told me I wouldn't be able to do it because, in fact, it is very hard, in particular in the conditions where I did it, totally alone and without knowing anybody, without knowing Arabic at the time. Nowadays I do know because I had to learn, but I didn't know enough about the culture. I didn't have the contacts to manage my career. I searched for musicians from the street, literally. And I've built my shows alone, literally, without knowing much. I used to sing the songs I wanted to my musicians, songs that I heard in the street. I memorized the sound and I tell them, this is what I want for the show. That's how basic and instinctive and precarious the structure was. I mean, it's crazy. So being able to go there and to create a show that kept growing and growing and growing, and having people, Egyptian people, who knew I was a foreigner, so they were not expecting me to know much, and they were not expecting me to understand Egyptian dance because I'm a foreigner and I don't look Egyptian at all. So everything about me yells foreigner. Yeah, I don't pass by an Egyptian, and it was never my intention to do so. Because I am who I am, you know. I don't believe in trying to emulate or copy something that I'm not. I don't think that's a powerful move, not a smart move for sure. Yourself, your authenticity, even if it's out of the box, out of what people expect, is your power zone. Who you are is your power. It's not about trying to fit. So being successful in my own terms without selling my soul to the devil in Egypt for 8 years was a big dream coming true. Another dream was to travel the world and to teach and to perform and to lecture, which I've been doing in the last few years. I've been everywhere in the world. There's very rare countries that I haven't had the chance to work. So that's already another dream, you know, which is fulfilled. I'll keep traveling, but meanwhile that kind of thirst and curiosity, I've kind of killed it, you know, already, because I've been in many, many countries, and I'm open to continue to do this, but it's something that is not a novelty for me anymore. It's something that I've already done. Also publishing a book which is The Secrets of Egypt, Dance, Life and Beyond, although it was not the book I intended to write. It was not the first book I dreamt about writing. But it was a dream come true, an unexpected dream, which came from a course I taught in London called The Secrets of Egyptian Dance. And the book was an unexpected dream that I fulfilled too. Yes, so there are also some dreams I still have in the drawer. One is the book that I did intend to write, and I'm working on it right now. So once I'm done with that book and published, that is a big dream come true. And also having a show with a professional orchestra touring the world in a project that mixes performance, teaching and lecturing, bringing the best of Oriental dance to a level which has not been made until now. This kind of revolution happened in the Egyptian folklore with one of my dearest teachers called Mahmoud Reda. He is considered the father of Egyptian folklore. He did create a series of shows in Reda Troupe, which he also created or co-created with his brother, and he took Egyptian folklore to the whole world. But Oriental dance raises very specific taboos, and it's disturbing and revolutionary for people in many ways, in ways that Egyptian folklore is not. So what Mahmoud did was really limited to the folklore. I think there is still a job, a similar job, to be done in Oriental dance. So in that aspect, I'm just open and waiting for a good producer who can see the vision I have for the project and believe in it, which is not easy because Egyptian dance is associated with, not so artistic, not so high level dance. So it is not easy to find a good producer that can see beyond what has already been done. But I think he or she is out there, and it's just a matter of time. And it's only a matter also of checking how strong is that dream, because some dreams come and go, it doesn't mean that I have these wishes right now and I will have them a year from now, or it doesn't mean that maybe a year from now I have new dreams that I'm not aware of right now. So I'm kind of very goal oriented and dream oriented, but at the same time I'm flexible in the way that I go according to what I feel. The book, for instance, is a dream that has survived many years. So before I went to Egypt, I already had this wish of writing this book. It has survived until now, so it's a real big deal, and performing there was a real big deal. That's why it happened. And the work around the world has been a big deal because that's what is happening. It doesn't mean that at some point a dream that used to be very strong in my heart starts to fade and give birth to a new dream. I think that can happen, and it doesn't freak me out. It doesn't worry me. I just go for what makes me feel alive and flow with life as well, not imposing too much of my agenda on it. So if life agrees with me, these are the things that are going to happen, but you never know, something better can come along.
Sure. You tell us about your book. What made you write your first book? It's called The Secrets of Egypt, Dance, Life and Beyond.
Yes, well, as I was saying, this book was born from a course that I taught in London. And here's what happened. In the years that I was performing in Egypt, I was absorbing information. I was being educated without noticing. Because what I was doing was I was trying to survive, point one. I was learning the culture and the language and the rules very, very fast because I had to. I was working with the best musicians in the country every day. So that meant not only the work on stage, but rehearsals, the suggestions they brought daily of music that I didn't know. So every day I was learning new music. I was knowing about composers and poets and singers that I didn't know because they brought me material every day. I was changing my show every day, if not every show. So sometimes in one night I would have different programs I would not do the same show. That meant that the repertoire in my head was growing. And I was not noticing because I was just doing my job. I was just dealing with things as they come along. And the school of building yourself as a dancer and building your name in Egypt and receiving people's feedback, it's also a school that it's invisible. You don't realize how much you're absorbing until you go out of that cocoon and you start to see, oh my God, the vacuum, the void between what you know, what you already have in your muscles, in your mind, and what regular dancers have all over the world. I mean, it's a big difference. So I started to observe that those things that I had been absorbing in Egypt, digesting without noticing, the things that made Egyptian dance strong, interesting, magical language, were not being taught or performed anywhere. And I was, not only watching dancers in my workshops, but I was judging. For instance, in Russia, the biggest competitions in the world, I see like probably the best prepared dancers in the world. I'm judging them, right? So I have like a paper with criteria, and those criteria, some of them met my idea of what Egyptian dance should be, but many of my criteria, based on what I've learned in my career in Egypt, were not there. And the things that made Egyptian dance impactful and really interesting, they were not there. So I started to make notes. I said, okay, somebody has to teach these things because nobody knows about this. I thought everybody knows it. Something like, for instance, very, very basic thing for me, right? A dancer being trained as a visual, physical tool, but not as an emotional, energetic tool, for instance, right? So when I go on stage or when I'm dancing anywhere, the point is about working with the visual and working with the invisible. And the invisible, what people can feel from you but cannot see, is often more powerful than the visual. Much more powerful. But in order for that to happen, you have to train dancers so that they are aware. They are, as well as physical, energetic beings. So when you're dancing, you're not using just the physical body that ends here. You're using everything, all the energy, the intention, the emotion, the thoughts, all these things that are part of who you are. You're using them to reach out for people, to communicate, to link yourself to people. And I saw that nobody was doing that. I said, oh my God, they don't know about this? It's so obvious to me, because in Egypt, really, if you go on stage and you just focus on the external thing, people fall asleep, if you're lucky. If you're lucky, they will fall asleep. But mostly they will tell you, go home, go learn to dance and then come back, because this is ridiculous. What the hell are you doing, So these things that were very obvious to me, I found out they were totally unknown to dancers around the world. Even in the most developed markets, even in the communities where the technical level is more developed, I say, how is this possible? So I started to make notes, and I created a course focused on these notes, on these aspects of the dance nobody else is teaching. And I wrote a guideline of 10 pages to the students in London, and they loved it. They asked me, please develop these guidelines. We need more of this. I said, really? Really? This is not that interesting. Everybody knows about this. No, nobody knows about this. You have the impression that they know, but people don't know about this. We don't know about this. So I went to the airport in Heathrow, and I had some time to wait for the airplane, and I said, I'm just going to develop the guidelines. And I started writing. And when I realized I had a book, it was not a guideline anymore. It had become a book. So I was kind of surprised, because I was really not expecting to write this book. It was not something that I had planned. It was just something that came from the course and unexpectedly, became this. Yeah, and now it's already, it's a full course. I have a private online course that is an upgrade of the book, so it's growing, it grows. But initially, it was really not something meant to be. It was a very happy dream that came true without me wishing for it, at least consciously.
Yeah. So, what could you say through words that you usually say through dancing?
That is a very interesting question, because usually you dance what you cannot say through words. That's the point of dancing. I think it was Isadora Duncan who said, if I could tell you what it meant when I'm dancing, yeah, it wouldn't make sense on dancing. It somebody had asked her after a performance, somebody asked her, what do you mean by that? That thing that you did, that dance, what's the meaning? And her answer was this: if I could tell you through words, there was no point on dancing it. So there is this idea, which I agree on, that dance expresses things that words cannot express. And I agree at a great extent. I think dancing allows you to go above the mind. Something that speaking or writing usually doesn't, because at least we're bound by words, and words are limits. You see, when I say a word, it's already limited, so it's like in a cage. Because dance doesn't use spoken words or written words, there is a limitless expression of things that you can say. There is not a defined code. It's a completely open landscape where you can discover things you didn't even know you wanted to say. So to answer your question, or to try to at least partially answer your question, I think I would go back to the notion of freedom. Because what Oriental dance allows you to do is not to be bound by human codes. Not to be bound by mental structures. You're allowed to use your head, your body, your heart, your soul in intercommunication. And you create languages that are above and beyond the human known languages. So you're talking about subjects and you're expressing things that then you try to put in writing or in speaking, and I do try to do that. I write a lot about dancing, and I have my blog, Joana Saahirah Magical World, for instance, and I've written articles for magazines and newspapers, and I try to do it. So it's not that this is not a foreign attempt to me. It's a very, very familiar challenge to me to try to express the things that go through the dance in words. But it's really hard, you go around the experience, but the experience itself, it's speechless. It's literally speechless. It is silence. I think Oriental dance, it's already in the dimension of silence, where every speech, every language in the world is resumed and is shrunk, let's say, to its essence. So there is only essence. There is no vocabulary that belongs to a certain country, a certain language. It's a universal language that speaks what words, in fact, cannot speak. If we push the envelope, I think freedom and magic. Magic, I think, is a very important word. Magic and enchantment and unpredictable adventures. It's a very, very special world that is really above words. It's hard to explain. It's just magical freedom. Yeah, that would be the possible definition. Yeah.
So let's talk about a point that actually is an important part of your life. It's teaching, right? So what does it mean for you to teach Oriental dance?
aside from passing along the experience and the knowledge that I have in me in relation to Egyptian dance, Oriental and Folkloric, because there are different styles of dance. You have Egyptian Oriental dance, classical, modern, baladi, shabi. You have in the folklore, you know, Saidi, you have Nubian, you have Bedouin, you have different kinds of dances inside of what are the Egyptian dances, and each style has its own music, its own clothing, its own characters, its own technique, its own rhythms. So there's a lot of data, you know, people have no idea how much variety there is in this area. But teaching for me is not only about passing the right knowledge and the correct data that educates people. That's for sure a very important part of teaching, but there is nothing that gives me more pleasure than seeing a person flourishing. It's very, very special to be a guiding light, let's say, in somebody's journey, in the sense that you're teaching them, yes, the data, the information, but you're also awakening them to their own identity and to their own power, to their own individuality, and the way they see the dance, the way they feel the dance, their perspective. So instead of imposing my perspective, which is personal, it's mine, so it's limited in a way. Of course, you know, it's a perspective that comes from knowledge, from know-how. So it's completely different when you have a totally ignorant person who feels things. Okay, you feel the music that way, but you don't have the educational background that allows you to feel with the structure. So I do have that structure, but in the end, it's my perspective. And there are many perspectives. So I love to empower students in a way that they feel confident about themselves and they're ready to bring their contribution to the dance instead of following mine and copying mine. That totally freaks me out. And I don't think that's the job of a real teacher. A real teacher is someone that makes you independent. A real teacher is someone that gives you the tools so you don't need her anymore. This is a teacher. Somebody who shows you, look, this is what I have for you. These are all the tools you need. From now on, tell me, who are you? What do you bring to the table? And of course, this, you know, it can be a challenge for a lot of people because it brings responsibility to the table. When you're not pushed to follow me and to copy me, when I push you to go the other way around, which is, who are you? How do you hear this music? How do you feel this music? Tell me, which movement would you do? This brings responsibility to the table because suddenly it's your decision. It's you. It's your identity on the table. It's not mine. So people, you know, they may feel uncomfortable at first because they're not so confident that, you know, their perspective would be interesting. They also know that once you take a stand and you say, this is my way of doing things, they are open to criticism because originality, individuality is always open to criticism. When you copy somebody who is a format which has already been approved, in my case, you know, the students who study with me, they know I know. They know that if they follow what I'm doing, at least people will think, oh yeah, that's how you do it, because, you know, it's a reference of someone who knows what they're doing, but it's not them. It's me. What they are being evaluated for, it's a way, my shadow. But when you tell them, no, leave my shadow. I can teach you until here. But there is a territory where I do not enter. Because that would be a disrespect towards your power, your potential, your creativity, your intelligence. I respect my intelligence so much that I have to respect other people's intelligence. I respect my talent so much that I have to respect other dancers' talent. I cannot tell them, no, I am the one. Follow me. That is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I may be the one who has more experience here, okay? I may be the one who brings some knowledge that you don't have yet, but that doesn't mean that you should do it like me. It doesn't mean that I should be your reference. Your reference should be you, who you are. And teaching is really about making people independent in the sense of discovering who they are and gaining confidence, yes, allowing them to gain confidence so that they can bring the gifts only them can bring to the dance. And I believe this is how evolution comes, you know, because if every student is empowered, educated and empowered, you have a lot of interesting contributions to the dance instead of a clone machine factory, which is very boring and it's very static. So I say, you know, question everything that I teach you. Point one, I love when people say, no, I don't agree. I think it's very healthy. You know, when people tell me, I don't understand. I don't know why you teach it that way. I don't know why. Tell me why. I say, well, I will tell you why. I love this. You know, this kind of dynamic, challenging relationship instead of coming from a place of imposing myself on people and say, this is how it's done. Follow me, people. This is ridiculous. For me. It's ridiculous for me. It doesn't mean it's the right way or the wrong way. It doesn't make sense for me. So teaching is so much about empowering people to be and to dance their best selves and to lose the fear of criticism. Because really everything original in this life is prone to receive criticism. Positive and not so positive. So you gotta have the character to assume the responsibility and be prepared for the feedback. That when you do something unique, something of your own, from your own skin, some people will love it, some people will not love it, some people will understand, some people won't. This is the problem. I mean, it's not even a problem. It's just different perspectives, and we don't have to please everybody, you know. So if you want to be an original, which everybody is, be ready to take the consequences, you know, and to be on the hot spot and follow through with your truth, you know. So it's about empowerment. It's about empowerment. Teaching, it's about empowering people more than just giving them the data.
In that sense, which are the biggest challenges that to the learning of Oriental dance?
Well, I guess it depends also from the person, but as I observe, I think mental and emotional blocks are probably the most challenging aspects of learning this dance, because the technique is very organic, it's very natural, so there is no strain. Let's say we're not talking about a dance that asks you to perform things that are aggressive to your body or very strange to your body. You know, Oriental dance is everywhere, the movement is everywhere, you know, it's part of life. So there is this naturality in the movement, which I think it's easy for most people. Then, of course, as you move along, you know, you start to coordinate, and there are technical requirements on an advanced level that are not so accessible to everybody. But in general, you know, the technique is not the great problem in the sense of movements which are already there. You just have to, you know, become aware of them, have more control over your body. There's a lot of isolations and coordination. Sometimes you're moving from the waist down in a certain speed, from the waist up in a completely different speed. You're moving your arms, you're moving your chest, you're moving your hips, you're moving everything in a different direction. So there's a lot of body control and awareness and coordination, very subtle sometimes. But mostly it's the mind blocks and the emotional armors, the emotional blocks that are challenges for people. I see dancers having a hard time feeling the music and expressing the music. I see them having a hard time trusting themselves, so there's a lot of monkeys running around in the head, and that really doesn't help them, you know, because the body is connected with the head as well. So if you don't trust yourself, for instance, you won't be able to do certain movements. You won't be able to flow with the music. You won't be able to use your body in a loving, accepting, expressive way if you're doubting yourself all the time. If you don't know how to use your instinct, for instance, also, this is a problem. If you don't know how to listen, this is a big problem. And it's a problem you find all over the world, because I think it's one of the plagues of Western civilization is that we stopped listening. There is so much noise, physical noise and mental noise. Nobody, or very rarely you see somebody who can just stop, listen. Just listen. Without any plan, any agenda, just listen. And this is the base of Egyptian dance. It's a big problem for most people. I find students completely obsessed about moving, doing things, doing things. So they want you to show them the movements and repeat. So they copy, they repeat, they go happy home. And I thought, no, stop. First, before you move, you have to stop. You know, before you can have a quality movement, you have to know how to be still. Because the quality of the movement in action comes from stillness. If you cannot be still and present, when you start to move externally, your movement will be empty. So there is this relationship between silence and music, stillness and movement, which people are totally unaware. And it freaks them out, because this is not the way our societies are working nowadays. This is not the way we're raised. I mean, the dancers that I'm training around the world, you know, they are educated to run. They are educated to achieve as much as possible in the shortest possible time. Who has time to listen? There is no time to listen. People don't have the time. Or they believe they don't have the time. Who has the time to be still? In our societies, we believe that being still is the equivalent to death. You're dying, you're not using your time in a useful way, you are lazy, you are numb, whatever you can call it, you know, but there is this association between stillness and lack of productivity, which calls for a lack of worth. Because if you're not being productive in Western society, you're not worthy. You're unworthy. So all these associations which come from our education and mental background, they are big challenges to the learning of Oriental dance on an artistic level, yes. Because when you just want to learn some movements and have fun, that's cool. I mean, you don't need to go this deep. But if you're in it to learn it as an art form and as a self-discovery tool, you will find this and other challenges. But I think that with patience and humbleness, you get there. The problem is also that all of us, and me included, I've been through that, we want results right now. And Egyptian dance also teaches you that everything happens in its own time. You cannot push your body. Sometimes you get a concept here, but the body takes time because things are not connected, unfortunately. We have disconnected things. So it takes some time from what you register mentally to be processed physically and emotionally and spiritually. I mean, we're so fragmented that it takes time for things to come together. Also takes time to grow. And because this is a dance that demands personal growth, sometimes you find people in an urgency to do things right now. No, okay, yes, I want to be able to feel and interpret and do all that coordination and breathe and communicate and do everything that you're supposed to do ideally at the same time right now. Yeah. I said, well, but it's not possible right now because you're not ready. It will take time. No, but I want right now. It won't happen right now. I mean, you can kill yourself practicing movements and studying, but there is a certain timing for everything. And this dance really, I mean, it teaches you that so clearly. You would have to be totally blind not to see it. And I think it's humbling in the sense that you do your best and you accept that this is how far you can go right now. And it's perfect. And within what you can do right now, what you can be right now, you're gonna give it your best. There is no excuse. Just because it takes time and everything has its own timing, it doesn't mean that you're off the hook and you can fool around. No. Even if what I can do now is 10% of what I should probably be doing, those 10%, I'm gonna do them I mean, the best that I can. I'm gonna be fully present as much as I can. I'm gonna feel as much as I can. I'm gonna try to listen as much as I can. So there is no excuse to do a lame job. Even if you're a beginner, you know, you always have to put yourself in it. And this is something that learning of Egyptian dance demands, that you are fully present, which is a lesson in itself, and it's a challenge in itself, that you are fully present. Even if you don't have all the knowledge, even if you have some growth to do, all of us have growth to do. I mean, even when you are a more educated dancer, when you are mature, I'm discovering new things every day, you know. It is never a done job, it's a work in progress. So you really have to, you know, admit, you know, I've been done a long way. I've achieved a lot of things, and I've worked on myself on many ways, but I'm still learning. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. Yes, it requires humbleness and patience, but who would want to know everything, and who would want to be done? I mean, who would want that, right? Yeah. It's like, I find it much more interesting to be undone, and to know that I still have growth to do. In the moment that I feel I cannot grow in the dance anymore, I leave it totally. I have no interest in it anymore.
Can you describe the many sides of your work? I mean, there's so much universes.
Yeah, I like diversity. Yeah, I get bored very easily, so I need to do different things in the field. First of all, you know, I perform and teach and lecture around the world. So this is a side of my job that is relatively recent. It has been happening in the last 4 years. Before that, as I mentioned, I was performing every day in Cairo. So my life for a long time was focused mostly on performing. I mean, I didn't have time or energy to do anything else. I was always performing, or recovering from performing, or rehearsing for performing. So there was always, you know, everything was around performing. And traveling the world allows me to meet different dancers, to know how the Oriental dance is growing in different communities. So I have a very wide view of dance. When I was in Egypt, I was kind of isolated in a way. Of course, I was isolated in the birthplace. So it's a very good place to be isolated in, at least while you're discovering the dance and while you're taking useful things from that experience. But it was a cocoon, it was a cave. You know, I was completely isolated from the world, and my life was resumed to performing in Cairo every day, which is amazing. But at some point, you know, you really need to see what's going on around, and that's what I do when I travel to teach, to perform, or to lecture. I also have online private courses, which is a way I found to keep in contact with dancers that I meet around the world, people who want to continue studying with me. And the online private courses allows us to do that, and also allows me to create private, personalized programs that are aimed at taking the best out of that person. So it's a very peculiar pleasure, which I don't have when I teach big groups. Because in that case, you know, I prepare a choreography, and there is a style that I'm developing depending on the theme of the workshop, but I work for the group. I don't work for a specific person. So there is no personalized corrections. There is no personalized guidance. In my online private courses, I do a personal work, a personal program with each person, with each student that comes to me. I also have the Introduction to the Secrets of Egyptian Dance, which is an upgrade from the course I taught in London, the same course that originated the book. So it is an upgrade. It's a 5-session intensive workshop, and each session happens on Skype, face-to-face, just as the private online courses. It's always face-to-face. I need to see the dancer in front of me, and I need her to see me as well, as I do the movements, as I explain, as I stop to correct, as I give them my immediate notes, my immediate feedback. So the workshop is an intensive format that introduces intermediate and advanced and professional dancers to a higher perspective on the dance. It's also about things that nobody else is teaching in the field. It's really not about just teaching you some steps and some choreographies. It's beyond that. And the writing. And the writing, which is taking, a lot of my time. I've been writing for many years. In fact, I've always written, and I'm working now on the new book. I'm still promoting The Secrets of Egypt, Dance, Life and Beyond. And I write for different websites. I write for magazines sometimes. So I have a lot of writing work going on. And I could be doing other things, I'm educated in acting, so I could be acting. I miss acting very much. It's something that I would love to do, but in a way I have to choose and create priorities in my work. So between the teaching, the traveling, the performing in the festivals, the choreographing for people, the consulting, that's a new service I have, consulting for dancers. Preparing them for shows, guiding them for specific works, helping them create a choreography for a competition or for a show or for whatever they need. So there are many sides of my work that are divided between the writing, the performing, the choreographing, and the teaching.
Joana, do you have a message for dancers? What would you tell them?
Oh my God, I have many messages for dancers. In fact, many of them I've been sharing through the messages of the Wong, which I've been recording from here, and a lot of the important messages I want to send dancers are in those videos. But I would say, be yourself. Be yourself in the dance. I think that's very important. I would also say respect your teachers, but have the self-confidence and the humbleness to understand that in the end, it's the person behind the dancer that gives quality to the dance. It is not really or not only about the steps and what you do, is how you do it and why. And for what? Why are you dancing? Are you there to give something? Are you there to take something? If you're there to give, what are you giving of yourself? And if you are there to give what you are you taking care of yourself? I mean, are you taking care of your own garden? In the sense that when you arrive to the dance, you have a beautiful person to share? Because that's very important, you see. I mean, if you're somebody who first of all, doesn't believe that you're worth sharing, then you will not have anything to give through your dance, because your dance is fed through who you are. So I would say make sure that the person behind the dancer is worth sharing. Because that's really the contents, that's the juice. The movements and the clothing and the lights and the music, all that is part of, but it's like accessories. There are like parts, but the essence, the core of what you're doing when you're dancing, it's really about sharing the best of you with the world, to inspire people to see the best in themselves. So I would say, from all the important messages that I could come up with, because there's a lot of things in this area that I think are interesting to say to people who like Oriental dance as a student or as a professional, as an audience member. But I really think that taking care of your garden, making sure that your internal world is beautiful and is worth sharing, I think this is something that is mostly forgotten, and it's very important, really important, because that's what will define ultimately the quality of your dance and the impact you will do as a dancer. Of course, the audiences don't know. This is the job of the dancer to know. It's not the job of the audience to understand, wow, this is a great dancer because she shows me my own greatness. No, the audiences are totally unaware of these processes. But if you are a dancer, especially if you are a professional, it's your obligation to know these things. It's not the audience's obligation. They're just enjoying. I'm responsible for creating this magic. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the receiving part of the dance. You know, they will give me the feedback, but it's a feedback.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their job to create the magic. I am the one who is creating the magic. And they give me back that magic because I give it to them first. So take responsibility, you know, to create something with your dance that is worth sharing with people, and never forget the person behind those movements, and never hide behind those movements. I mean, the vocabulary of the dance is a way of sharing who you are, and not a mask, not something that you should hide behind. That's not the purpose of the movements. The movements are really a vocabulary, like A, B, C, D, from which you can build words, and just make sure these words are meaningful and they come from a place of beauty and of love, of creativity, of all the things you want to see manifested in the world. Be a vehicle of that, you know. Be an example of what you want to see in other people. Be this beautiful mirror. Yeah. This is really the job of an Oriental dancer, to be a beautiful mirror. But in order to be this beautiful mirror, you have to be it first. You have to be the beauty first. And then you work as a mirror. That would be my message.
Joana, thank you so much for receiving
You
us
are
here
welcome.
today in Paradise, and congratulations.
Thank you for your interview, for your empathy, and for the questions. It was a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you very much.